Admiral Kazid's mandibles clicked with frustration as he stared at the holographic transmission still playing in front of him. "You know what really grinds my gears about humans," he hissed, turning to his second-in-command. "They don't even have the decency to lose properly." Commander Verilm didn't respond right away. His eye stalks rotated toward the Admiral cautiously. "With all due respect, sir, they've lost 7 consecutive battles. Their orbital defenses are in ruins. Their military infrastructure is crippled. What more could you want?" Kazid's carapace flushed a deep purple, the Kravage equivalent of seething rage. He stabbed one clawed digit at the message hovering between them in midair. It was looping on all frequencies, translated into standard galactic language. "Stop attacking or we stop pretending to be civilized." The words hung in the air like a specter, defiant and unbending. "What does that even mean?" Kazid snapped. "Is it a threat? A joke? A cultural metaphor? We've conquered 18 species across 12 systems. Not one of them ever responded to defeat with something so maddeningly human." "Desperation," Verilm offered. "They're out of time, out of options. Their communications network is barely functional. This might be the work of a rogue faction trying to save face." But another voice cut through the conversation. "It wasn't rogue," said Admiral Keyes, entering the command bridge and flicking one antenna toward the screen. "Intelligence confirms the signal originated from Earth's United Defense Council bunker beneath Geneva. This was coordinated, intentional." Verilm hesitated. "Should we respond?" "No," Kazid growled. "We press forward, deploy the 9th wave. I want the last of their ground resistance crushed within 36 hours. No more delays." Far below, buried in the remains of what used to be Geneva, General Elena Blackwood stood inside a fortified bunker. The once proud United Earth Defense Council headquarters was now little more than scorched concrete and twisted steel, but the communications systems inside the emergency bunker still functioned. That was all she needed. "Status report," she said, not even looking up from the display panel glowing in front of her. Colonel Dmitry Volkov's voice was steady. "The message was transmitted successfully on all available channels. Our last quantum entanglement uplinks confirm it reached at least 73% of the Kravage fleet." Blackwood nodded once. "And the response?" "They continued orbital bombardments. Nothing else." "So they've chosen option B," she muttered, almost to herself. "Excellent." Volkov shifted uncomfortably beside her. "With respect, General, I still believe we should have gone with a more conventional approach. A peace offering, or..." "We tried peace offerings," she cut in, 3 weeks ago. "Then surrender terms. Then targeted counterstrikes. These bugs don't think like we do. And we've been playing by their rules long enough." "But activating Protocol Omega," Volkov's voice dropped. "It's our last resort." Blackwood turned to face him fully for the first time. Her face was gaunt from sleepless nights, but her expression was carved from iron. "Look around, Colonel. We're living in last resort territory. You've seen what they do to planets once they win. Civilians aren't spared. Hospitals, schools, entire cities, glass." He didn't argue. He couldn't. The footage spoke for itself. She returned her attention to the display. "Do you know why we called it Project Lazarus?" Volkov hesitated. "Because it brings back the dead." "No," she said with a dry, humorless laugh. "Because it brings back what we buried, what we tried to kill in ourselves. The part of us we hoped was gone." She tapped in a command sequence. A new interface appeared on the screen, dark and full of encrypted pathways. "Authorization. Blackwood, Tango Sierra 91, she said. The console glowed blue. Volkov swallowed hard. "Yes, General." He moved to the control terminal, hands shaking only slightly, and began to type. As the system came to life, layers of hidden data and ancient protocols reawakening Blackwood stood still, watching the screen pulse like a heartbeat. "Time to remind the galaxy," she whispered, "who we really are." The room dimmed as the last of the surface feeds went dark, one by one. collapsing under the weight of the Kravich orbital bombardment. What had once been the bustling center of Earth's global military command was now rubble and ash. Yet deep beneath Geneva, in a bunker built for exactly this kind of scenario, the heart of humanity's last defense still beat. General Elena Blackwood stood motionless in the command center, her eyes locked on the tactical display in front of her. The air around her was heavy with unspoken fear, but her voice cut through it like a scalpel. "Korivetov, initiate the Lazarus uplinks." Volkov hesitated just for a second. "Ma'am, are you sure?" Blackwood turned, slowly. Her face bore the quiet determination of someone who had already made peace with the consequences. "They've given us no choice, Colonel. We've followed their rules. We've tried every diplomatic channel, offered peace, even surrender. And still they burn our cities." "But Protocol Omega," he said quietly, almost reverently, "it violates every interstellar convention. It's not who we are." She met his eyes. "It's not who we pretended to be." There was a long pause as the weight of her words settled in. Then Volkov nodded. "Yes, General." He moved to the secured console, inserted a physical key, and placed his palm on the biometric scanner. The screen lit up with a red glyph, a phoenix rising from flame. A soft chime confirmed the system's activation. All across the planet, dormant systems stirred to life. Bunkers that had been sealed for generations powered up. Satellites long thought decommissioned began broadcasting encrypted signals. Invisible data networks awakened. Above them, in the Kravich flagship, sensors suddenly flared to life. "Commander," a junior technician barked. "Unusual energy readings from the planet's surface. It's everywhere across every continent, even the oceans." Fleet Commander Dizarok snapped to the console. "Weapons? Nuclear? No, sir. Unknown signature. Not in any database. It's not just localized, it's..." Planetary Dizarok stared at the growing web of light forming across the holographic display of Earth. Millions of points were blinking in synchronized pulses, forming a glowing lattice that wrapped around the entire globe. Then the transmission came. The screen shifted to reveal a woman in a dark, unmarked uniform. The insignia was simple: a stylized phoenix. Her presence radiated quiet authority, her voice eerily calm. "This is General Elena Blackwood of Earth's Lazarus Protocol." "We warned you," Dizarok sneered. "Your message was meaningless nonsense. You're defeated. Your defenses are destroyed. You're bluffing." Blackwood's smile was sharp. "We are crippled if you're referring to the military we allowed you to see. But I think you'll find humanity's history is more complicated." The screen split, revealing scrolling data feeds, troop deployments, weapons schematics, power distribution networks, none of which matched any known Earth military assets. "For the last 3 centuries, we've followed your rules. We created the United Earth Defense Council to ensure our forces remained civilized. We buried certain technologies. We dismantled others, all to appear non-threatening. All to belong. But just in case," she continued, "we created Protocol Omega." Volkov stood beside her now, silent, bearing witness. "A global network of hidden facilities, systems, and operatives," she said. "People you never suspected. Technologies we never admitted to. And we didn't do it out of paranoia. We did it out of hope. Hope that we'd never have to use them. Yet here we are." Back on the Kravich bridge, alarms were now blaring. Consoles flickered. Systems rebooted. Power levels dropped to half. "They're interfering with our ships," someone shouted. "They're not interfering," Blackwood said, voice cold. "They're taking control," Dizarok shouted. "What have you done?" She didn't flinch. "We activated a subspace resonance field. It's currently scrambling your ship's artificial neural lattice. But with a small tweak, it could be targeted at your crew's central nervous systems instead." "That's barbaric," he cried. "No," Blackwood said evenly. "That's survival." And with those words, the galaxy was introduced to the side of humanity it had forgotten, or perhaps never truly understood. The side that had built empires, fought extinction, adapted through war, chaos, And darkness, it was not the mask of diplomacy. It was the truth behind the mask. Protocol Omega wasn't a last-ditch defense. It was a reckoning. And Earth was done pretending to be civilized. Fleet Commander Dizarok paced the command deck of the Kravich flagship, mandibles twitching with restrained frustration. The initial reports had made no sense. Erratic sensor feedback, unexplained energy pulses, systems flickering at random intervals. Now, his worst fears were solidifying in front of him. "Commander," his sensor officer called out, voice tight with confusion and rising alarm. "The energy surges are intensifying." "Source?" Dizarok demanded, striding over. "Everywhere, sir," the officer replied. "Continents, oceans, even the polar caps. It's planet-wide." Dizarok's claws tapped rapidly against the console. "That's impossible." "No, sir," the officer insisted. "I mean it literally. We're registering simultaneous high-frequency pulses across all major landmasses and aquatic regions. And they're syncing." The main display flickered, then stabilized into a view of Earth. Dizarok watched, stunned, as the holographic globe began to light up with millions of pulsing nods. The lights formed interlocking patterns, lattice-like structures covering the planet in an elegant, deliberate web. "What in the seven moons is that?" he muttered. Before anyone could answer, a new signal came through this time, a direct transmission from the surface. All systems recognized the frequency, but none could block it. It cut straight through every layer of encryption and firewalls like a blade through silk. "Put it on screen," Dizarok ordered. The image shifted to show a human woman in a black uniform. It bore no national or planetary markings, only a single insignia, a phoenix engulfed in flames. She stood in what appeared to be an underground command center, calm, composed, dangerous. Danger. "This is General Elena Blackwood, of Earth's Lazarus Protocol," she began, her voice measured. "We warned you." Dizarok scoffed. "Your last message was a bluff. Empty words." "Then allow me to clarify," she said, her expression hardening. "For the last 3 centuries, humanity has been restraining itself, following your rules, playing civilized. But that ends now." "You're crippled," Dizarok interrupted. "Your fleets are gone, your orbital defenses." "Destroyed," Blackwood agreed. "If you're referring to the military we allowed you to see." She raised her hand, and a new data feed appeared beside her. Technical readouts, advanced weapons platforms, energy signatures all alien to the Kravich, far beyond what any species in the Galactic Council possessed. None of it matched Earth's registered capabilities. "Humanity's history," she continued, "is not one of peace. We united only after nearly destroying ourselves. In doing so, we chose to bury our darkest technologies. We chose to evolve, but we never forgot. And we never stopped bearing." Dizarok's command deck exploded in noise. Officers shouted over one another. Panels dimmed. The lights dipped, flickered, and returned at half power. "We're under attack," a technician yelled. "Not from outside, from within. Our internal systems are being overridden." Blackwood's voice continued, unshaken. "You're experiencing a subspace resonance field. It targets your neural command lattice, biological and synthetic. Right now, it's only disrupting your systems. But we can turn it on your crews with a single command." "You call that civilized?" Dizarok snapped. "No," Blackwood said flatly. "I call it necessary." Another officer screamed from across the bridge. "Commander, mass teleportation signals detected. They're boarding us." That froze the room. On board one of the Kravich destroyers, Lieutenant Marcus Davies materialized in a ripple of blue energy. His Lazarus Protocol combat armor purred softly, syncing to his neural interface. The suit wrapped around him like a second skin, advanced adaptive plating, internal weapon systems, integrated AI support. His eyes scanned the corridor, already flooded with data from the nanodrone swarm they'd released upon arrival. "Alpha team in position," Davies subvocalized through the neural uplink. "Copy, Alpha," came the response. Beta through Echo Teams report successful insertion. Proceed with primary objectives. Engine rooms, command decks, weapons, systems. Secondary. Gather intel. Lethal force. Authorized but prisoners preferred. Davies raised a gloved hand. His team of 5 followed silently, their armor shimmering with active camouflage. Their bootfalls were soundless on the alien metal. Contact 30 meters. 4 Cravage, standard configuration. Non-lethal, Davies whispered. We need them talking. In one seamless movement, he stepped into the open, drawing attention. Hello there, he said in flawless Cravage, the suit's translator modulating his voice. Lovely ship. Mind if we borrow it? The guards didn't respond. Their mandibles gaped in stunned confusion. And then it was over. An MP burst from Davies' suit, disabled their weapons. His team flanked them from behind with stunning precision, literally. Stun batons crackled, and the Cravage dropped. Secure them, Davies ordered. Then we move. Let's take the engine room. And just like that, the tide turned. For the first time in recorded galactic history, the hunted had become the hunters. Admiral Kazid stared at the growing wall of silence flooding into his tactical interface. Ship after ship dark, not destroyed, not confirmed lost in combat. Just silent, no communications, no pings, no telemetry. Almost 40% of the Cravage fleet had gone completely dark in under an hour. This doesn't make sense, he muttered, voice tight. How? How could they do this? Across the command deck, Commander Verelm was hunched over a console, all 4 of his eye stalks locked onto cascading data streams. His mandibles clicked once, sharply, before he spoke. Admiral, I've been reviewing all available data. This wasn't just a technological ambush. It was deception on a species-wide scale. The humans have been lying to us since the day they joined the galactic community. Kazid turned toward him slowly, incredulously. Explain. When humanity applied for membership, they presented themselves as a developing civilization. Primitive by our standards, they embraced our guidance. They adopted standardized technologies. They followed every protocol, but none of that was real. You're saying this was an act? A calculated one, Verelm said grimly. They portrayed themselves as compliant, naive, but they were already far more advanced than they let on. They accepted our systems, but never fully integrated. They let us think we understood them. Kazid's carapace shifted, color streaks of deep orange and black radiated outward. You're telling me we've been outmaneuvered by humans? Before Verelm could respond, the command deck doors hissed open. 5 humans entered. They wore sleek black armor, matte and seamless, with that now familiar phoenix emblem on the chest. Each carried weapons that looked like nothing in the Cravage arsenal, refined, efficient, terrifying. The lead soldier stepped forward, helmet retracting to reveal a dark-skinned human with a close-cropped beard and a calm, professional expression. Hello, Admiral, the man said. I'm Lieutenant Marcus Davies. I'll be handling your surrender today. Kazid blinked, mandibles twitching. Surrender? You may have surprised us, human, but this fleet still has enough firepower to reduce your planet to ash. Head, Davies corrected, gesturing casually. He tapped something on his wrist, and a new holographic display activated in the center of the command deck. It showed the entire Cravage fleet, but now more than half the ships were highlighted in blue human control. Kazid's mandibles snapped shut. But how? That's a fascinating question, Davies replied, perching himself casually on the edge of a console. One I'll be happy to answer. You see, your people underestimated ours, like so many before you. You thought our civilization ended where your intelligence said it began. But the truth is, he glanced at the soldiers behind him who stood motionless, weapons lowered but ready. We never stopped preparing for a day like this. Back on Earth, deep inside the Geneva bunker, General Blackwood watched the scene unfold through a live uplink. Her arms were crossed, expression unreadable as Colonel Volkov stepped up beside her. Message from Lieutenant Davies, he said. Admiral Kazid has been secured. They're transferring him to the containment facility in Antarctica. Blackwood nodded. And the data? We've extracted their full command network. Our AI teams are already analyzing it. Preliminary results suggest the Kravage weren't acting independently. Her eyes narrowed. Then who gave the order? Volkov hesitated. The Galactic Security Council. They flagged us as a destabilizing influence after detecting activity near a few of our Lazarus test sites. They saw what we were hiding, and they decided to end us before we could reveal it. Blackwood exhaled slowly. Not irrational. Misguided, but not irrational. Volkov shifted. We've beaten their invasion, but we both know the Council won't just let this go. No, she agreed. They'll respond, but not in the way they think. She turned to the main console and issued a new command. Get Davies back on the line. Initiate Phase 2. It's time we spoke to the entire galaxy. Within minutes, every major comm relay, every galactic embassy, every council observatory lit up. A message broadcast across every world. We are Earth. You tried to erase us, but you underestimated us. That was your first mistake. Your second would be to do it again. And with that, the secret was out. Humanity had never been weak. They had never been behind. They had simply been waiting. In the vast marble and gold chamber of the Galactic Security Council on Centauri Prime, 23 delegates from the most powerful civilizations in the known universe were deep in debate and denial. This was a rogue action, barked Delegate Hazel of the Furion Conclave, his spiked carapace rattling with indignation. We authorized a limited containment strike, nothing more. It was not limited, countered Olo of the Tentaran Republic, his fronds quivering. Entire cities on Earth were leveled. Civilian populations were targeted. We triggered a war. They were becoming a threat, someone shouted. They were already a threat, murmured another. Screens and holographic feeds flared to life mid-argument without warning. None of the Council's internal security protocols activated because the override didn't trip any alarms. It wasn't a hack. It was a design feature. A human woman appeared on every screen at once, seated at a command station surrounded by glowing data interfaces. Her uniform was unfamiliar, black and unadorned except for a single symbol, a phoenix rising from fire. She did not wait for permission to speak. Greetings, esteemed delegates, she began, calm and clear. I am General Elena Blackwood of Earth. The room fell silent except for a few murmurs of disbelief. I believe you've been discussing us, she continued, so it seemed only fair that we join the conversation. Chairperson Zerl, a gelatinous Moran whose bioluminescent core pulsed with alarm, attempted to interrupt. This chamber is protected by the most advanced systems in the galaxy. How? Those systems, Blackwood said smoothly, are based on quantum entanglement protocols humanity designed and shared with you centuries ago. You adopted them, you built your security on them, but you never asked why we were so generous. Shock settled like fog across the room. Delegate, Heil hissed. This is a threat. No, Blackwood replied, her voice steady. This is a conversation you tried to avoid, one that begins with a simple truth. You authorized an unprovoked attack on our world, based not on what we did, but on what you feared we might become. The display expanded. Kravage warships captured appeared above dozens of Council homeworlds, floating silently in orbit. This is not an invasion, Blackwood clarified. This is a demonstration. The fleet you sent to destroy us now flies under human control. We will return your vessels and your people when we're finished analyzing the data. Gasps echoed through the chamber. She paused just long enough for it to sting. For 300 years, she said, we've played the role you assigned us. We downplayed our capabilities. We accepted your oversight. We followed your rules. But you mistook patience for weakness. You mistook diplomacy for submission. Earth, she continued, is now declaring itself an independent system. Effective immediately, we are no longer subject to Council jurisdiction. Outrage erupted. The chairperson pounded a pseudopod against the floor. "You can't just walk away from the charter." Blackwood's tone cooled to steel. "You violated the charter when you sanctioned an attack on a sovereign member without proof of threat. Under Article 7, we are the injured party. This will destabilize the entire galactic structure." Someone shouted. Blackwood leaned forward slightly. "Then maybe the structure needs to change." She gestured again, and Earth appeared on screen, now surrounded by a shimmering energy field. "This is our new border. Entry is granted only under parameters we control. We've been self-sufficient for centuries. Galactic trade was never a necessity. It was a courtesy." Delegates turned pale, even species without blood. "I'm not here to threaten," she added. "Despite everything, we don't want war. We seek coexistence on equal terms." The room quieted. Her final words carried the weight of a world rebuilt from fire. "If you accept these terms, we will return your ships, your people, and resume peaceful engagement. If you do not, then we stop pretending to be civilized by your definition of the word." The transmission ended. Delegates stared at each other in stunned silence. And in that silence, one thing became clear. The galaxy had just been reminded that the most dangerous thing about humanity wasn't their technology. It was that they had chosen to hold it back. 3 days had passed since the galaxy watched in shock as Earth's General Elena Blackwood calmly dismantled the legitimacy of the Galactic Council live in their own chamber. Now, in a sleek diplomatic hall overlooking Lake Geneva, the air was surprisingly still. The sun reflected off the water outside, casting a warm glow over polished stone floors and curved glass walls. A place once scarred by orbital fire now hosted the beginning of something entirely new. General Blackwood entered the room, flanked by Colonel Volkov and 2 senior UX advisors. Across the table sat Admiral Kozit, once the commander of the Kravich fleet tasked with Earth's annihilation, now wearing the formal diplomatic regalia of the Kravich hegemony. With him were 3 of his kind, dignitaries selected not for their battlefield prowess, but their political insight. Blackwood inclined her head slightly. "Admiral, should I say diplomatic envoy Kozit?" Kozit clicked his mandibles in what humans had come to understand as his species' version of dry humor. The promotion was unexpected. "It seems my failure has been repurposed." "Failure often contains the seeds of progress," Blackwood offered, her tone professional but not cold. "Thank you for returning under different circumstances." "The High Command was persuaded," Kozit said, "by your arguments and by the reality of your capabilities." He meant the ships, the tech. The fact that his entire invasion fleet had been neutralized in a matter of hours, then returned intact, but stripped of command protocols, a silent warning wrapped in pragmatic mercy. Blackwood gestured toward the treaty framework displayed on the table between them. "We've proposed a phased partnership. Cultural and scientific exchange to start. Diplomatic liaisons. Eventually, if trust holds, military cooperation." Kozit's mandibles twitched. "Military cooperation. After we tried to burn your planet." "We're not interested in vengeance," Blackwood replied. "We're interested in preventing the next war. That means reshaping the structure that nearly destroyed us." There was a long pause. Kozit leaned forward. "You must know what this means. A public alliance between humans and Kravich will shift the balance of power across the entire galaxy." "It already has," Colonel Volkov said quietly. "We're simply acknowledging it." Kozit turned toward Blackwood again. "And you believe my government will agree to this?" "You convinced them to authorize a war," she said with a faint smile. "Convincing them to prevent another one shouldn't be harder." Kozit gave a low, rumbling click, a Kravich laugh. "Perhaps, but some on your side will resist as well. You revealed capabilities most of your own people didn't know existed." "True," Blackwood admitted. "We kept Protocol Omega buried for centuries. We did it to protect both ourselves and the greater galactic balance. Now that it's public, yes, there's outrage, confusion, even fear, but there's also pride and resolve. Humanity's house is messy, Admiral, but when pushed, we clean it fast." She leaned in slightly. "We don't want control. We want balance. Collaboration." Kazit stared at her for a long moment, his compound eyes glinting with reflection and something else, caution perhaps, or the beginnings of trust. "What's your endgame, General?" he asked. "To build something better than fear," she said. "To make sure no one else, no planet, no people go through what we just did. Not at our hands, not at yours. Not under the Council's blind eye." Kazit exhaled slowly, his posture relaxing for the first time since the meeting began. "Then we should begin," and they did. For the next 3 hours, delegates from both species outlined the framework of what would later be called the Earth-Kravich Accord, a milestone not just of diplomacy, but of survival. Not a surrender, not an alliance born from conquest, but a mutual recognition that both sides had been played and both had something to offer. When the session adjourned for a short break, Blackwood and Kazit stood by the tall windows overlooking the lake. "Your world is beautiful," Kazit said quietly. "I regret that my first experience of it was through targeting systems." Blackwood nodded. "You're not the first visitor with that perspective. Fortunately, we tend to outlast those who underestimate what lies beneath the surface." Kazit turned his eyes to the horizon. "And what lies beneath now? Possibility," she said. "That's what we've earned. That's what we'll fight to protect." 3 days later, beneath the towering cliffs of Olympus Mons on Mars, Admiral Kazit stood in stunned silence. The Prometheus complex was nothing like he'd expected. It wasn't a military installation or an experimental weapons lab, it was a cathedral of knowledge. The central observation deck stretched wide and high, overlooking a chamber that buzzed with activity. Scientists in sleek multinational uniforms moved between glowing workstations and portals that shimmered like liquid glass suspended in midair. "This is unexpected," Kazit finally said, his mandibles shifting through subtle hues of awe and disbelief. "I didn't believe the reports. This shouldn't be possible." "Most don't," replied Dr. Lila Kapoor, the facilities director. She stood calmly at his side, arms behind her back, her voice as composed as the gentle hum of the machines around them. "What you're seeing is the culmination of 5 centuries of Earth's research. This isn't theoretical. These apertures are functional, stable, and not of our creation." Kazit's compound eyes shifted, focusing on one of the glowing rifts. Through it, he glimpsed a vibrant forest, not one that belonged to Mars. The gravity was different. The atmospheric signature was alien. It wasn't a simulation. "You're accessing other dimensions," he said, half in disbelief, half in awe. "We're connecting to existing ones," Dr. Kapoor clarified. "We didn't build new realities. We simply learned how to find the doors." Lieutenant Marcus Davies, now serving as Kazit's liaison, stepped forward from behind them. The community banned this type of research after the Voltarian collapse. They assumed it was too dangerous to pursue. "They weren't wrong," Dr. Kapoor added. "The risks are real, but so is the potential. And unlike the Voltarians, we didn't rush into it." Kazit slowly paced forward, gazing through another aperture, this one showing a crystalline ocean under a violet sky. He turned back, his voice cautious. "And what's the purpose of this work? Strategic dominance, weapons?" "No," Kapoor replied, her voice firm. "If we wanted weapons, Admiral, we already had them. The kind that could shatter continents or strip planets bare. But we didn't use them, not once, because power wasn't the goal. Understanding was." She gestured to the chamber below, where researchers collaborated across species. Even now, several alien scientists, representatives from neutral systems, were assisting human teams, analyzing data, comparing findings, debating hypotheses with a fluency born of shared curiosity. "This facility," she continued, "represents humanity's true ambition. Not war, not conquest, but the pursuit of what lies beyond." Kazit turned toward Davies. "And you kept all this hidden? From the Council? From your own people?" Davies nodded. "We had to. The galactic community wasn't ready. You saw the reaction to a few stolen military specs. What would they have done if they knew we were probing the edges of reality itself?" "Fear clouds reason," Dr. Kapoor said. "And we've seen what that fear can lead to." Khaziit walked to the edge of the platform, gazing down at a team preparing to enter a portal. They carried carefully shielded cases and monitoring drones, not weapons. "And now," he asked quietly, "now that you've revealed your hand?" "We're choosing transparency," Blackwood's voice echoed from behind them as she entered the observation deck. "With those who are willing to listen, with those who understand what's truly at stake." She approached Khaziit, her presence calm, not commanding. "Your people value adaptation. So do we. That's why I invited you here, to see who we really are, not just what we're capable of." The Admiral studied her. "A diplomatic way of saying you want an alliance." "I want understanding," Blackwood corrected. "And eventually, perhaps, cooperation. But that's earned, not demanded." Khaziit looked again at the swirling portals. "You could have built an empire with this." "We could have," she agreed, "but we didn't. Because we've already seen what empires cost." There was a long silence as Khaziit processed everything: the scope, the restraint, the vision. "My government will ask difficult questions," he said at last. "Good," Blackwood replied. "We'll answer them honestly." She stepped beside him, looking out over the scientific marvel below. "This is humanity's future, Admiral. Not the armor, not the ships, not even Protocol Omega. This discovery, collaboration, pushing boundaries not to dominate, but to understand." Khaziit's color shifted slowly from wariness to something that resembled respect. "I'm beginning to believe you." Blackwood offered a faint smile. "Then that's a beginning." The chamber of the Galactic Security Council was in chaos. For the past 14 standard hours, what was supposed to be an emergency session had devolved into political trench warfare. Delegates shouted over each other, alliances splintered, and threats hung heavy in the air. The chamber, normally a polished stage for carefully worded diplomacy, now felt more like a battlefield. At the center of the uproar was a name no one had expected to dominate the galaxy's attention: Earth. Delegate Huzrel of the Futurian Conclave slammed a spiked limb against his podium. "The Earth Kravage Scientific Cooperative represents a direct challenge to Council authority. Their open-access research protocols violate centuries of carefully maintained safety restrictions." "They violated nothing," snapped the Tenteran representative. 7 member species have already applied to join. Are we to expel a third of the Council for seeking progress? "They've been corrupted," Huzrel bellowed. "The humans have infected the Kravage with forbidden knowledge, and now they're spreading it like a virus." Chairperson Zerl, whose translucent form shimmered with exhaustion, finally raised a limb for silence. "Perhaps," they said slowly, "we should hear directly from the accused before casting further judgment." With a signal, the chamber's central platform activated, and the holographic forms of General Elena Blackwood and Envoy Khaziit appeared, standing side by side. Gasps rippled through the assembly. It wasn't just the sight of a human and Kravage together. It was the calm unity in their posture, the shared conviction in their eyes. "You stand accused," Zerl began, "of undermining Council authority and violating foundational safety protocols. How do you respond?" Khaziit spoke first, his voice a deliberate, steady cadence. "The cooperative violates no law. Every member world joined willingly. Our agreements are legal under Charter Article 12, which affirms the sovereignty of member civilizations." "That's a technicality," Delegate Hazel interjected. "You've breached established scientific limits for your own gain." Blackwood's expression remained composed. "We're offering the chance to revisit those standards using new data, cautious oversight, and the participation of any willing species." "You concealed your capabilities from us," Hazel snapped. "You built all this in secret." "Yes," Blackwood admitted, without hesitation, "because we understood the Council would respond as you're responding now, with fear, with control, with suppression, with suppression." Murmurs of agreement and dissent spread in equal measure. Zerl looked weary. "This debate is rapidly becoming unproductive. We must decide, does the cooperative have a place in this galaxy, or must sanctions be imposed?" Before they could vote, Blackwood's tone shifted, calm but firm. Before you decide anything, you should know. Representatives from 14 species, 7 council members, and 7 independents are currently touring the Prometheus complex on Mars. They've seen what we're doing firsthand. The chamber erupted. Zurl's form pulsed erratically. You invited council representatives to your classified facility? They requested the visit, Kuzit said, and as sovereign entities, we granted it. We operate with transparency and informed consent concepts the council may wish to adopt. As the delegates scrambled for their comm devices, alerts began sounding across the chamber. Messages from homeworlds, emergency pings, incoming orders. One by one, delegates fell silent, reading what their governments were sending. Some were being told to reconsider their position. Others were being recalled altogether. Several were being replaced effective immediately. Even Huzral's expression faltered as his own console lit up. He silenced it with a slam, but the message had been clear: adapt or be left behind. Zurl finally spoke, voice resigned but measured. This session is adjourned for 24 standard hours. We will reconvene after conferring with our respective governments. As the chamber emptied, the chairperson remained, their gelatinous form shifting in slow contemplation. For the first time in centuries, the balance of power in the galaxy wasn't merely shifting, it was cracking open. And somewhere beneath that flicker of concern in Zurl's core, a new emotion stirred: curiosity. 1 year later, the view from the observation platform atop the newly rebuilt UED's headquarters in Geneva was nothing short of breathtaking. Below, the city pulsed with life trains gliding silently through revived streets, children laughing in parks that had once been craters, drones weaving effortlessly between construction towers, still repairing what had been lost. The scars of the invasion were still visible in places, but so was the recovery. Not just structural, but cultural. Human. Captain Marcus Davies stood at the railing, sipping a hot cup of spiced tea, eyes scanning the celebration below, alien voices mixed with human ones. Translated laughter echoed across the plaza, where 28 flags fluttered together, each representing a species now part of the Earth-led cooperative. He didn't have to turn to know she was there. "You pulled it off," he said simply. General Elena Blackwood stepped up beside him, her uniform immaculate, her gaze distant. "We all did," she replied, "and we're not finished yet. The Exoloians just landed. That makes 4 former council leadership species now officially part of the initiative." "And the Furions?" she asked without looking. Davies smirked. "Still holding out, officially, but they've sent 3 observer delegations this month. It's only a matter of time." Blackwood nodded slowly. Her eyes drifted across the gathering, a symphony of cultures, ideas, and hope. "It's strange," she said. "I spent most of my life preparing for the day humanity would need to fight for its survival. I never thought I'd live to see it lead something greater." Davies leaned on the railing. "The Civilian Oversight Committee wants to know your plans, now that the transition is nearly complete." She raised an eyebrow. "They want to know if I'm stepping down?" Their words were, "transitioning to an advisory role." Blackwood smiled faintly. "Tell them yes. The crisis phase is over. The cooperative has momentum now. It doesn't need a wartime figurehead anymore. It needs diplomats, scientists, visionaries." "And what does that make you?" Davies asked. "Exhausted," she said with a soft laugh, "and ready to disappear for a while." Before he could respond, a familiar voice cut through the ambient noise. "General, Captain." They turned to see Admiral No, now High Envoy Kuzit, approaching. His carapace was adorned with a ceremonial sash combining the colors of the Kravage hegemony and the Earth Cooperative. A rare diplomatic distinction, and a powerful symbol. Kuzit gave a respectful nod. "The Moran chairperson has just arrived. Their first official visit to Earth." "Another unthinkable moment made real," Davies murmured. "So much was unthinkable a year ago," Kuzit agreed, his tone thoughtful. "Including that the Kravage and humanity would become allies after what I led." "History turns on strange hinges," Blackwood replied. Sometimes the greatest wounds open the way for the greatest progress. As they spoke, Dr. Kapoor approached with a small delegation of scientists, human and alien alike. "General, the demonstration is ready." The group moved toward the platform center, where a device the size of a suitcase had been carefully secured on a pedestal. Kapoor activated it, and a small dimensional aperture shimmered into being above it, stable, compact, and perfectly controlled. "This is the first portable aperture generator," she announced to the gathered dignitaries, "the product of cooperative research between 7 member species. It marks not just technological advancement, but a new model for how knowledge is pursued together." As the group applauded and the science team began explaining the device's intricacies, Blackwood stepped back slightly, standing between Davies and Khaziit, removed from the spotlight for once. "You know what still confuses me about humans," Khaziit said quietly, his mandibles clicking with amusement. "You never do what we expect, just when we think we understand you. We change the game," Davies finished with a grin. "That's kind of our thing." Blackwood said nothing, simply watching the soft shimmer of the aperture against the evening sky. When the reception shifted indoors, she lingered outside, alone. The stars above shone brighter than she remembered. A year ago, they had seemed distant, cold pinpricks behind walls of fear, war, and deception. Now they felt different. Not just light years away. They felt possible. Colonel Volkov eventually joined her, carrying a datapad. "Chairperson Zurl is asking for you. It's time to finalize the Council's new relationship with the Cooperative." She nodded. "This will be my last act as director. You okay with that?" She took a long breath. "We spent centuries hiding what we were capable of. Then we spent a year proving it. Now it's time to move beyond capability and focus on possibility." He smiled. "And Protocol Omega? Still active," she said firmly. "Trust is building, but the universe is vast, and we've learned to never leave the doors unguarded." Volkov extended a hand. "Ready to go in?" She looked to the stars once more. Then she smiled, took his hand and walked forward. The conference room was silent when General Elena Blackwood entered, flanked by Colonel Volkov and 2 senior UEDS officials. The tone was different now, less tense, more deliberate. This wasn't a war council or an emergency session. It was something far more unusual. Peace. Peace. At the far end of the table sat High Envoy Khaziit, wearing the formal regalia of the Kravage hegemony and the Earth Cooperative. Beside him were 3 Kravage delegates chosen not for intimidation, but for intellect. Diplomats, historians, strategists. Blackwood inclined her head as she approached. "Admiral," she greeted with a faint smile. "Or should I say, diplomatic envoy." Khaziit's mandibles clicked in what passed for a smile among his kind. The promotion was unexpected. "It seems my failure has been reframed as opportunity. History is full of such twists," Blackwood replied as she took her seat. "We survive, we adapt, and sometimes we grow." For the next 3 hours, both sides worked through the framework that would eventually become known as the Earth-Kravage Accord. It wasn't just a treaty. It was a mutual recognition, a statement that the past, while unforgivable in some respects, could still be the foundation for something new. When the session broke for refreshments, Blackwood found herself standing beside Khaziit near a wide viewport overlooking Lake Geneva. The waters shimmered beneath a pink-orange sky, as hovercraft glided gently overhead and birds returned to roost in newly restored trees. "Your world is beautiful," Khaziit said softly. "I regret that my first view of it came through targeting systems." "We've always been resilient," Blackwood replied. "The damage will heal, physically at least." "And the rest?" Khaziit asked. "That," she admitted, "takes longer. Healing isn't just rebuilding what was lost, it's redefining what we build next. And whether we build it together." He paused, "which is why my government has a question. One that may determine the future of this alliance." She turned to face him. "Ask it." "Protocol Omega, Project Lazarus. We accept that these were defensive measures, responses to an existential threat. But what now? What are your long-term intentions? With your capabilities, expansion would be tempting." Blackwood didn't flinch. She had been expecting the question, hoping for it. Humanity, she began, spent millennia expanding across our own world, often at the expense of others. We colonized, exploited, and nearly destroyed ourselves in the process. When we finally unified, we made a choice. We would no longer pursue conquest. We would pursue understanding. She turned toward the stars just beginning to appear beyond the horizon. Our goal isn't domination, Admiral. It's exploration, discovery. We've realized there's more to gain by learning what's out there than by trying to control it. Kazit studied her, all four of his eyes focusing, analyzing. That's a noble sentiment, but history suggests power rarely stays dormant. It always seeks expression. It already has, Blackwood said. The technologies we've developed, the ones we kept hidden, weren't built for destruction. They were created to push the boundaries of what's possible, to connect worlds, minds, realities. Dimensional exploration? Kazid asked, surprise flickering in his posture. She nodded. Among other things, consciousness transfer, neural continuity across realities, quantum coexistence. Concepts the Galactic Council banned because they didn't understand them. Kazid's color shifted slowly, subtle markers of contemplation in his species. My government did not anticipate this direction, he admitted. Few do, Blackwood replied. That's why we've invited your scientists, not just to observe, but to collaborate. You value adaptability, Admiral. We value perspective. Together, we can challenge the very structure that brought us to the brink. He hesitated, then said slowly, that would place us in opposition to the Council. Not necessarily, Blackwood said. But if the Council continues to define order through control, then yes, it may see us as a threat. But so be it. Stability built on fear is not stability at all. There was a long silence between them. Not uncomfortable, just honest. Kazee turned back toward the meeting room where the rest of his delegation waited. They will want oversight, protocols, assurances. You'll have them, she said. Transparency is part of this new model. We don't seek blind trust. We seek mutual clarity. He gave one final nod. Then let's redefine what power means. Together. Let me know if you'd like a Vietnamese translation or if you'd like a follow-up continuation showing the formation of the scientific coalition and its impact across other species. 6 months later, the Galactic Security Council was in crisis. What began as murmurs of dissent had grown into a storm of reckoning. The Earth Kravich Cooperative wasn't just surviving, it was thriving. More species had applied to join in the last 3 months than the Council had accepted in a decade. And they weren't just minor systems. Prominent civilizations, including former Council allies, were shifting allegiances, not for conquest, for collaboration. In the Council's main chamber on Centauri Prime, tensions ran high. Delegate Huzrel of the Furion Conclave slammed his scaled fist onto the console. They're destabilizing everything. Open-source research protocols, portable dimensional technology. We built this council on control and consensus. Without it, we descend into chaos. Their protocols are transparent, countered the Tantan representative. And they've shared more discoveries in 6 months than the council has in 60 years. They're undermining our authority. They're offering an alternative. Chairperson Zurl, who had presided over the council longer than most civilizations had written language, signaled for order. Their gelatinous form pulsed a faint blue, a sign of fatigue. Perhaps, Zurl said carefully, we should speak directly with the leaders of this initiative before rendering final judgment. The chamber lights dimmed, and the central platform activated. 2 figures appeared via hologram. General Elena Blackwood, standing straight-backed in her now iconic black uniform, and High Envoy Kazit of the Kravage hegemony, his ceremonial sash gleaming under digital light. You stand accused, Zurl began, of undermining council authority, destabilizing long-standing order, and violating safety protocols in pursuit of unregulated research. How do you respond? Blackwood didn't flinch. With respect, she said, your accusations reflect fear of change, of lost power, of truths too long buried. But none of what we've done is illegal under the Galactic Charter. In fact, it's the Charter that protects our right to forge our own path. You hid your capabilities, Delegate Hazel snapped. Yes, Blackwood replied evenly. Because the moment we revealed them, the Council tried to erase us. Your technologies are dangerous. So is stagnation, Kazee cut in. So is pretending innovation must be suppressed in the name of safety. You tried to destroy Earth based on predictions of what they might become. And in doing so, you created exactly what you feared. Zurl's voice was weary. Where does this path lead, General? If the Council does not recognize your cooperative, what then? Blackwood's tone softened, but her resolve didn't. Then we move forward regardless. Because we aren't building an empire. We're building a network, one built not on fear and secrecy, but on curiosity, transparency, and mutual respect. Before the Council could respond, alerts pinged across the chamber. Dozens of delegates received priority transmissions from their homeworlds. Confused glances were exchanged. Devices were checked. What's happening? Hazel barked. Kazee answered. The Council representatives who visited our facilities have returned. They've submitted reports to their government's detailed reports. What you're seeing now are responses, orders, realignments. Zurl watched as delegates stood, one by one, their eyes heavy with realization. 7 member states are withdrawing from Council protocols, someone whispered. 3 more are replacing their delegates. It's already begun. In the center of the chamber, Blackwood's projection remained calm. This isn't a coup, she said. This is evolution. Zurl's form dimmed, then pulsed faintly in contemplation. You speak of transparency, of openness, and yet much remains hidden. Blackwood gave a measured nod. Yes. We've revealed only a portion of what humanity has developed, not to withhold power, but to protect stability. If your Council can adapt, there's a place for it in what comes next. If not, the galaxy will move on without it. What is it you want? Zurl asked, almost quietly. Balance, Blackwood answered. Not dominance, not obedience. Balance between what we know and what we dare to discover. Between fear and possibility. Between control and cooperation. A heavy silence settled across the chamber. Zurl finally exhaled an ancient, weary breath. We will adjourn for 24 standard hours to review the implications of this shift. As the projections of Blackwood and Kazet faded, the chairperson remained seated, their gaze fixed on the now empty platform. The old order had cracked. Whether it would shatter or be reforged remained to be seen. But one thing was certain: the galaxy would never be the same.